So next we have a man who needs no introduction.
Maybe a wee bit, Stuart. Come on, big. Thank you. So, so some of you might recognise me as from your classroom, or bumming about the studio, or in the corridor and stuff. And that's me. So, you probably thought you were coming to see a professional photographer, and that is kinda, because I'm just starting on my journey, and what's been really good is to see people who came here today who are at various different points in their evolution from being amateur coming through student and actually being professional and going on. So this, I've taken a lot from every single speaker today, so it's been really, really good. But if you look in Google for a definition of what a photographer, a professional photographer is, it's making 50% of your income. So being a student, that doesn't have to be a really big number to be a professional photographer. So that's me. My talk is going to be about photography, but it's also going to be about opportunity. And I made some real key fundamental changes in my life in the past couple of years. So this is about taking opportunity and getting into photography in a different way. So some of you know photography is my second career. So I'm going to explain it, I need to go back a few years as well. So this is what I looked like a couple of years ago. I worked for a media company in California called Harmonic Incorporated, and we did every TV and media installation globally. Huge title, but what did that actually mean? Some of you might recognise it as Lost and Found. So what did I do? So my kids grew up thinking I was a spy, because I had this drawer in my office which had 3 passports on it, 15 different currencies, mobile phones for 5 different continents, so I could just jump on the plane and go somewhere at a minute's notice. So these passports were because I'd go in sometimes really dodgy areas, and I'd be in the Middle East, various parts of the Middle East, and Middle East parts who had conflict with other Middle East parts. So having different passports in my pocket allowed me to move really quickly across the globe. So I had responsibility for all new media projects globally, with the exception of North America. That's a very big part of the world. Concurrently, we'd be running 30 projects at one time, so that's a big to-do list. I had 85 people working for me across Europe, Middle East, Africa and Asia Pacific. Again, that's a lot of people. I employed every single one of them, mostly individually. So I knew them all, I knew all the families, I knew their kids. On average, I took 120 flights a year. Quick maths tells you that's every 3 days. So I had a bag packed in my office, and I'd get a phone call at dinner. You need to be on a flight to Dubai in 2 hours' time. That's quite a lot of pressure, and I did that for 15 years. Importantly, I had revenue responsibility for the 20% of the company's revenue. When I left the company was $1 billion company. 20% of $1 billion is a lot of zeros. So I had a lot of pressure on my head. Oops. So after 15 years, it was a bit of a time for a change. And people says to me, Kevin, you've got a 6-figure salary, your expenses paid to travel everywhere in the world, and you're going to pack it all in and go and be a photographer taking pictures of gigs in Ayrshire. And I went, because the way I was thinking was, I could have this high-profile job and probably been dead in 5 years' time, or I could have the rest of my life doing something that I was really passionate about. And there was a lot of things happened around about that time, call it synchronicity or whatever, but you'd wake up and you look at a bedroom clock and it'd be the same 4 digits, or something would happen on the radio. That's talking to me, do something. And I decided to move on, so I just walked away from the whole thing. So I transitioned to being that guy, to that guy. So this is me at the Hydro at Christmas time. That's what the Hydro looks like when you're standing on the stage. I would much prefer to be there than in a boardroom in New York. Sounds a bit crazy, but absolutely I'd take that any day. And a couple of years on, I wouldn't change my decision and what I did. So what's the 10-10 thing? And people can ask me, what is this 10-10 thing? What does it mean? Well, first of all, it's my birthday. If anybody wants to buy me a birthday, 10th of October, birthday card time. And I needed a brand. And because I'm quite stingy, my email address already had 1010 in it because it was my birthday. So I went, all right, I'm not spending any cash on a new one, so that's fine. And at the same time, I Googled it just to make sure it didn't mean like 420 or anything else like that was a bit dodgy. And it came up, it says with an angel number. And I went, is this synchronicity again? is this why the bedroom clock's showing something else? It was like Evan Almighty and saying, you need to go and build an ark. And this is what it said to me. I says, why the hell not? So it became 10:10. So I saw the world. I did kind of, sometimes I'd fly to Johannesburg overnight, get off, get a shower, go to a boardroom, do a presentation, get taken to dinner with two guys with rifles in the back, jump back to the airport and be back home the next day. Sometimes you've never seen anything. I always took my camera, just waiting for that opportunity. This was taken in 2009 at the Western Wall. And although that looks like quite a serene image, that was on the day of the Passover. If you remember this a few weeks ago, what was happening in Jerusalem then, that was happening that day then. To the right of that image is where the Christians think Christ was crucified. And the top of that wall is Temple Mount, and that's where they think the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. So that square mile is probably the most contested area in the world. And to get to that point, I had to go through a search with two guys with AK-47s, Dugs, and all that stuff. And I did put a skull cap on, and I posted a wee message from my Waynes into that wall on that day. So you never know when you're going to have the opportunity to capture a picture, so I always take my camera with me. So I kind of think cameras open doors. So when I'm walking about and I've got my camera in a white lens, people want to know the story. So it gives you an opportunity to speak to people. And I'm a bit of a sweet talker sometimes when I get going. And then there was this wee band for Ayrshire. So where I was outside San Francisco, there was an amphitheatre built just at the back of where Google live. And it was built by a band called the Grateful Dead. And then one weekend there was a music festival on. It was like Strokes, Snoop Dogg, etc, etc. It was like $5 a ticket. I said, I'm going to go to this. And right down the bottom, there was this wee band called Biffy Clyro. You might have mentioned, you might know these guys. So this was back in 2011. In the States, nobody knew who Biffy Clyro was. And I'd met Simon Neil at the airport 3 weeks before. And I just thought I'd blag my case. And I did. So I finished up right at the front, speaking to the security guy, and was right at the front to take Biffy on the last day of the Only Revolutions tour. It's when Ben Johnson and I both had hair. So these were my first entry into music photography. That's me when I did it, and a wee bit darker, and my mate Simon. So wherever I would travel, I would always take my camera, but it was always available light. So I've heard various people talking about how they use flash, studio, and various other things. I always made do with what I had. So it was always nightscapes, auroras, trails, that sort of thing, and it always involved the music. So it seemed a kind of logical move to combine my love of music and photography, and gig photography just seemed like the natural progression. So these are the kind of things that I would take just for fun. Auroras, star trails, Brassy Beach, huge big puddle, but it looks much bigger than it. Being in Ragmoor in the middle of the night just paints a beautiful picture, although it looks black. That's what I like to play with. So I spent the next 18 months after I left building this new career, and I was standing for a starting start. So where I came from, a massive organisation, a big support organisation, contacts globally that I could call on, I found myself standing there on my own with nothing and just had to start to build things up. So I would just blag a photo pass wherever I could, just to build portfolio, to get experience. And folks say, have you shot before? I goes, oh, aye, shot Biffy Clyro in California. And people just go, oh, well, this guy knows what he's doing. And it would buy me access to just build portfolio. So for those 18 months, it was all overhead. So I would just get myself in and using that opportunity to build portfolio, but everything was at my cost. So all my travel, tickets, hotels, everything was all self-funded. I'd find a friendly face around that was desperate to get their photograph taken, just to get experience. And I'd shoot everything, even if it seemed unnecessary or uncool, or the band, nobody knew the band. What it was doing was, you were clicking that shutter and you were getting experience, and you were building portfolio, and that's what was important. So I built a portfolio, I built a website, because it looked more professional than just being on Instagram, and I built relationships. Even get back to my previous career, it's know how good you are in a lot of cases, you can be fantastic, but unless you've got a medium of getting that out there and having a contact network and of people who are going to sing your praises, it's going to be a whole lot difficult. So I built relationships, because they're going to get you in and they're going to spread your name. Sam, do you know this guy? I don't mean me, the other guy. John McLendon, otherwise known as Colonel Mustard, and he sings with Colonel Mustard in the Dijon 5. Sam, do you know them? Fantastic. Anyway, I met the Colonel as we were walking the West Highland Way about a year ago, and we just kind of built a relationship. So like 5 weeks after that was taken, we were there at Bellerin, 20,000 people, taking pictures of the Colonel. And these pictures were shared really widely, and again it kind of took my profile up another notch, made more contacts. Meanwhile, at the other end of the spectrum, John phoned me up 3 weeks ago to do a tour with Hunter and McMustard, and I said, I'll come and do that. Only realised I double booked because I was shooting the Barras on the same night. And I said, I can't do it, John. He says, well, can you come to any other gig? And that was it. The Inverkip Hotel, and people were eating their dinner. So there's people eating steak pie in the corner, and I'm going like, this is midnight on a Friday night, I could be somewhere else. But it turned out to be a whole lot of fun. And what we decided to do was, that wee fire exit at the back, we decided, let's do a photo shoot in the back there. So we did. So I cracked on a fisheye lens, got in there, and started just taking some fun shots. And they kind of worked. And I stood up and bashed my head off the fire escape door. Just at this point, there was a whole lot of bad words came out. And the guys just started peeing themselves laughing. So while I'm on the floor, I'm still shooting and caught this kind of natural pose. Unbeknown to me, the BBC picked up on it, and the next thing it was used as single of the week. So you just never know, be going to that dinner with people eating steak pie and a couple of guys out in the corner, you don't realise what opportunity that might bring for you. It's not always easy. I don't know whether you can even see the guy. That was a shoot I did for Tidelines. Do you know Tidelines? Really? Thanks. That's Robert Robertson for Tidelines, if you ever know the guy. Sometimes you just turn it and the lighting is horrific, especially for the side of the stage. If you're at the front, you've at least got some nice lighting. If you're behind the stage shooting for the band and they're using a lot of atmosphere, this is what you're shooting into some nights. So a lot of it is based on anticipation and just waiting for the lights to change. Sometimes it gets even worse because they put red on. Blue just wipes off everybody's face. Red's even worse because trying to edit that out's a nightmare. And I'm going to show you a quick 30 seconds of what that looks like for the side, which is not what you see as somebody in the audience.
Sorry,
There should be sound, but... So you're trying to shoot in this, so you're waiting for a point in that where the strobes are kicking in. So we zip on it in time. And if you wait for the right time, you can get something quite nice. Editing helps as well. I only use Lightroom because I'm still fit for Photoshop. And Kim's looking down and saying, don't be fit for Photoshop. I'm still fit for Photoshop. Highlights. This was the biggest gig I've ever shot. I've been lucky to be tour photographer with Skerryvore for the past 3 tours. Anybody ever Skerryvore? No. Big enough to sell at the Hydro is where they are. So I'd done 10 nights up until this point, and I was terrified. I stood at the front of that stage in that pit, and I couldn't move. I had to walk to the side and take a deep breath. Although I'd shot them 10 times in that tour, I had to like just reset, back in and go for it. When you've got 12,000 people behind you, it can be terrifying, but you kind of get used to it over a bit of time. Working with the band directly allows you, if you're shooting normally for a gig or a magazine, you'll get 3 songs. So you're limited to what you've got 3 sets of lighting, you've got 3 songs, can't use a flash to do anything. You're working with the band, you've got more access, you've got access to the stage, you've got behind the scenes and everything. So you get a different type of vibe and access. You can get behind the drummer, you can go everywhere. As long as you're dressed in black and keep out the road. Hence the hat, and I don't know if that shiny baldy head getting in the way. these pictures were taken the last tour, just 6 weeks ago. Boys are just back for the States. They toured from New York to San Francisco. These images were used on posters, billboards and everything right across the States. So again, profiles getting raised all the time. So I'm nowhere near where some of the guys that you spoke in front of you this afternoon, but slowly chipping away. But the part is, I'm having fun doing every single thing I'm doing. And I never know where the camera's going to take me next. And some of the opportunities I've had is just amazing. That, I'm really proud of that image. We planned that for about 6 weeks. And that wee guy in there was the lighting director, a guy called Greg Shanklin. And Greg and I worked out how we would get this shot. And I had to get from there up to here in 3.5 minutes. If you've been in a high road, that's no easy. So I went in and spoke to the security guards, everything, and says, how do I get from there to there? And we worked out an access route. To get to the point where Greg was going to switch those lights on, and whoops, and light up the hydro. And it was going to be on one key. So the band was going to go together, together, lights was going to hit. And I had to be in that spot. And as shit would happen, I knew that couple there. And I got up the top and I was, oh, hi Kevin, how are you doing? And I'd be like, no, do you know what I mean? I need to change lenses and all that stuff. But that was how planning and being with the band can actually get you a shot. Highlights. These, if you don't know, if you didn't know some of the bands, you probably won't know these guys. These are rock and roll royalty. This was what I was talking about, 3 songs, no flash. That was in the pit at St Luke's. Wilco Johnson sadly passed away this time last year, but Norman Watroy, he's like probably the most famous bass player you've never heard of. He has played on everything. He was the guy that made me pick up the bass when I was 16 years old. And I had 3 songs, and I froze, because I was going like, that's the guy who played in the Clash's Sandinista. And I'm going, the bass line was just going in my head all the time. I'm not going to use this. And I'm going, that's Norman Watroy. And I couldn't bloody take the picture. So I had to again walk to the side and come back on. So it's quite freaky when you meet your idols. Another band who shot with a highlight, Pete and Diesel. Surely you've heard of Pete and Diesel. Thank God. Pete and Diesel's great fun to shoot. Boydie always wears interesting t-shirts, as you can see. And if you get him right at the start, before he gets too pissed, he's really interesting to shoot. But again, I had access with these guys where I could shoot behind stage on a few festivals. And hopefully I think they're booking me for Belladrum this year as well. You just get some nice casual scenes, something really interesting, rather than the kind of stage things. Because if you're in the pit, there's probably another 6 guys in the pit, all getting the same angles, getting the same shots. There's 10,000 people behind you with iPhones, and their stuff's on Instagram before you even leave the pit. So you're going to have to try and get something a bit more interesting. Again, these are all planned shots. So that's in the Royal Concert Hall in Glasgow during Celtic Connections. So if you've been up there, that's the rake in that is there. You're like miles up in the sky, and you have to get from there back down in less than a few minutes to get stage shots from the side. That's the most terrifying shot you'll ever get as a gig photographer, because you have literally got 5 seconds. So the place will come on, they've done their encore, the place is bouncing, and you have to go there and stand in the drum kit and get that right, get it framed, get your shutter speed right, get your aperture, make sure everybody's okay, you can see people right up to the back, and you probably get 5 seconds to take it. But can I get used to it? If you haven't seen Pete and Diesel, this is kind of what they look like on stage. They're nuts. So you get these pop-up festivals happen all over the Highlands, and these bands play, and like without any alcohol at all, this happens like at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and it just builds as the whole day goes. It's amazing. So these guys have become kind of personal friends over the past wee while. Anyway, that's Pete and Diesel, and that was the image that came for that gig of Boydie, with another interesting t-shirt which says ball bag on the front of it, in case you never clocked it. So, to answer some of the questions that came through, what do you do in shoot day? What's your workflow? That's my normal 2 bags when I'm going. Batteries, spare batteries, cards formatted, spare cards, all the things that you need to make sure, because if you're on a festival, there's no way you're getting anything else. Cleaning kit, always wear a body harness because if you're shooting 2 cameras, ear protection, you can't go without ear protection, it needs to happen. I shoot 2 cameras, I shoot a Canon 6D and I shoot a Canon R6. Sometimes I take 3 just as a backup. Lenses I predominantly use are all Canon L lenses 2.8. So a 20-40-70 and a 70-200 covers 99% of what I'm going to be shooting. If I'm trying to go for a wide vista like what I did at the Hydro, I've got a 16mm fisheye, which I normally correct in Lightroom. And then I've got a 150-600 if I'm shooting for a sound desk way back. But I rarely use these lenses. You get there early. Everybody else is turning up, sneaking into the pit, taking 2 shots and buggering off. You get there early. The guy who's going to... The band's probably known a great deal of interest because they're just doing it night after night and they kind of get into the routine. The guys you're going to have to make pals with, the security guy, especially the head of security, because he's either going to make or break your night. So he's either going to kick you out the pit early or he's going to give you a wee bit of scope. So you make pals with these guys. You make pals with the sounds guy and the light guy because they're going to tell you anything special they're going to do on that night so you can differentiate yourself with the other guys who's shooting. Work out access routes, work out your vantage points, use a sound check to work out what the lighting's going to be, get your settings nailed early in the day. You're going to have already have watched the YouTube video because if they're on tour, the gig's going to be pretty much the same as what it was the night before. This is not shooting for a band. You're going to check set list because the set list is going to be the same almost every night. So you know what your first 3 songs are going to be. You know how long it is. So if you're shooting for like Yes, and it's like a 20-minute first song, you've got a winner. If you were shooting the Ramones, you're buying 30 seconds. Do you know what I mean? So you need to work out what scope you've got. And again, in the YouTube stuff, you can work out what the stage furniture is going to be like, what angle you need to be at. So it's in your head. The minute you're in the pit, you're shooting. Pit etiquette. If you're shooting in the Hydro, it's like Sauchiehall Street. There could be 20 of you in there, and there's plenty of room to walk back and forward. If you're at SGW3 and there's 2 in it, it's mayhem. But you need to be cognizant that this guy or this girl standing next to you are there to do exactly the same thing as you. So you're shooting at sometimes everybody wants that shot, guy over the top of their head. They're also going to walk in. So you just need to make sure that you've got one eye on your camera, one eye on the people on the other side of you, and just be respectful. How I shoot fully manual. I normally start off depending on 250th, always 2.8 kicking off. And my ISO I've got on a thumb wheel at the front, so I'm adjusting 3 on the fly just depending where I go, but that's my starting point. And I just take it depending how the lighting goes. The shooting of fun, it's not the Hunger Games, although sometimes it feels like it. When the band all starting, everybody's champing their feet, and you're behind that barrier and it's shaking, and then all the beer comes over, and if you're lucky it's beer, and the bar is, quick taste test tells you it's probably not. But anyway, have fun. Do you know what I mean? You're there to shoot a gig. So if possible, I always do my backups before I leave the venue, just in case anything happens. And if no, when I get to the hotel or the home, I'm downloading and backing up. I'm doing 2 backups before I import into Lightroom, just to make sure, because I've had some disasters where things go, especially if people are paying you a chunk of cash. You want to make sure you've got backup. And that's it. So back in my kind of corporate world, when I was doing talks, they always says, leave people with an inspirational quote. And it was always like, pick the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, somebody like that. I'm going to get a quote from my mate Mikey. Right? My mate Mikey and I started off with 17 as technicians in the railway. And they told us when we went for the interview, you boys are going to be engineers. We walked in the first day. Mikey, there's your shovel. Kevin, there's your shovel. And 6 months later, we were still digging holes over there in Ayr railway station. It took us a wee bit of time to progress through our careers. Mikey and I stayed in the really dodgy hotels, 2 single beds. It's kind of shitty. But Mikey was always the guy, Mikey, what would you do? And Mikey was always there for advice. And it was dead simple. Difference between doing it and no doing it was no doing it. I'm like, Mikey, do you know what I mean? That's just lovely. Anyway, Mikey did all right for himself. Mikey finished up as CTO for Microsoft. So Mikey's quote was all right. So I'm going to leave you with Mikey's quote. Any questions? Follow me on Instagram. I need likes and things. And I'll take any questions here or afterwards. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Do you have bands often contacting you to do shoots for?
Yeah, it took a while. Normally I was bugging everyone. That's what I was saying, you know, take opportunity where we can, because you do something good for one person, they're going to tell their pals. Do you know what I mean? The music industry is like a village. And it took a long while before, but now I get people proactively contacting me, want me to do shoots for them.
Had a job that hasn't felt right, think you have taken it?
No, at the moment I've kind of taken everything. I'm getting to the point now where I can start to be a bit more selective, but there's nothing really I can say I felt uncomfortable with. I've been mostly working in trad rather than big rock bands and stuff like that, so you know, modern day trad's rad, you know what I mean? It's really, really cool. And the people you meet are all trained for the Royal Conservatoire, although they're all like mad drinking nutters, do you know what I mean, when you get them out? They're genuinely nice people, so I don't feel uncomfortable with any of the things that we've done so far.
Do you wear a Fitbit when you're doing your gigs? Because I'm curious to see what your step count is if you're running from one side of the hydro to the other.
Aye. Easily, halfway through a gig you're at 10,000 steps.
You can give us a playlist of all the bands you mentioned.
Sorry?
You can give us a playlist of all the
I will, I'll put it together, aye.
Where do you put your bands?
Sorry.
No, I'm saying, sorry, we've got time for one more, so that yourself.
No, go right, that's a question. Where do you put your two bags?
Well, bags, if I'm shooting for the band, it's in the dressing room or the green room or something like that. If I'm shooting, say, at the bars, there's at the left-hand side of the stacks, there's tables at the side just before the stage access. And I say that's part of speaking to the security guy. He's either going to tell you, carry your bags or put them in there, mate, and I'll look after them. So you make pals with the security guy. I think it was one more. Was there one more? No?
So see, questions like that you're saying that it's a stupid one, but we things that you won't learn until you do it wrong, they're great things to know, because when it goes wrong, you know yourself that
Yeah.
it can be stressful. So
Because if you get two hefty bags, and that's what you use for making your living, you don't want somebody walking out the door with them. So you want to make sure they're secure. So security guy's your pal, definitely.
Last question, if you could shoot any band in any venue, who would
Skip, I'm doing Skipperish next month. I'm doing Tunes by the Dunes. Oh, great bunch of guys. I don't know, I'd have to be some, I don't know. The band would probably be the Foos. I'd love to do the Foos. Or I'm trying to get myself get a pass for Muse in Glasgow this year because I'd love to do something really big production. Something like that.
thank you very much.
Thank you.